The last time I saw my daughter before that cold November afternoon, she was standing in our driveway with 2 suitcases at her feet and a smile I had not seen on her face in years. Emma was 19. She had been accepted into a graphic design program in Cleveland, and for the first time since her mother died, she seemed excited about the future. I remember standing beside her little silver Honda while she pushed a loose strand of brown hair behind her ear. "You have everything?" I asked. She smiled. "Dad, you've asked me that 6 times. I know. You packed half the car yourself. I know that too." She laughed. It was the same laugh she had when she was 10 years old. For a moment, I could almost see her mother standing beside her. Sarah had been gone for 5 years by then. Cancer took her when Emma was 14. One year, she was driving Emma to dance classes and complaining about how much coffee I drank. The next year, I was sitting beside a hospital bed holding her hand while she struggled to stay awake long enough to tell me one last thing: "Take care of our girl." I promised her I would. At the time, I believed promises were simple. You made them. Then you kept them. I would eventually learn that sometimes you can break a promise without even realizing it. Sometimes you don't abandon someone by leaving. Sometimes you abandon them by trusting the wrong person. My name is David Miller. I'm 52 years old, and for most of my adult life I've worked in operations for a freight company outside Columbus, Ohio. It's not glamorous work. Truck schedules, warehouse delays, fuel costs, drivers calling at 2 in the morning because a trailer broke down somewhere in Indiana. But it paid the bills. It paid off most of our house. And after Sarah died, it paid for everything Emma needed. At least, I believed it did. 3 years after losing Sarah, I met Diane. She was confident, organized, and energetic. Everything in my life felt messy back then. Diane never seemed messy. She knew where everything belonged. She remembered appointments. She organized the kitchen cabinets. She replaced the curtain Sarah had chosen because, as she put it, "You need to let some light back into this house." At first, even Emma liked her. Not loved her, but liked her. Diane made an effort. She took Emma shopping. She helped her fill out college applications. She told me Emma needed independence. And when Emma was accepted into the design program in Cleveland, Diane was the one who pushed hardest for her to go. "She needs a fresh start, David." I agreed. I paid the first semester tuition. I paid the deposit on a small student apartment. I helped Emma buy a used laptop powerful enough for her design software. Then I stood in the driveway and watched my daughter prepare to leave. Before she got into the car, she hugged me. Not one of those quick teenage hugs. She held on. "Dad? Yeah? You'll answer if I call, right?" I laughed. "Emma, I answer when you call from the grocery store. I'm serious." "Zoe." She looked at me for another second. Then she nodded. "I love you. I love you too." Diane came outside carrying a travel mug. "Let her go, David. Cleveland isn't another planet." Emma smiled. Then she got into the car and drove away. For the first hour, I watched her location on my phone. Diane finally took the phone from my hand. "She's 19, not 9. I let her tease me. I had no idea that 4 months later, I would find my daughter sitting outside a discount grocery store almost 100 miles from Cleveland, wrapped in a man's jacket and begging strangers to buy baby formula. It happened on a Tuesday, November 17th. I remember the date because every detail of that day has stayed sharp in my mind. I was in a town south of Toledo reviewing a problem at one of our distribution terminals. The weather had turned ugly around noon. Cold rain. Gray sky. The kind of Ohio afternoon where everything looks colorless. At around 4:15, one of my windshield wipers started splitting. I pulled into a small shopping plaza to buy a replacement. I parked near a discount grocery store. The rain was coming sideways. I was halfway toward the entrance when I heard a young woman's voice behind me. "Sir?" I kept walking. "Sir, please." Something about the voice made me stop. "I don't need money." There was a pause. "Just formula. Sensitive formula if they have it." I turned. A young woman was sitting against the brick wall beside the automatic doors. She had a faded denim jacket wrapped around her shoulders. The jacket was far too large for her. Her hair was tangled. Her jeans were wet almost to the knees. She was holding a tiny bundle under the jacket. For several seconds, my brain refused to understand what my eyes were seeing. I knew that face. But it could not be her. My daughter was in Cleveland. She had an apartment, tuition, food money, akar. She was supposed to be in class. Then the woman lifted her head. Our eyes met. The plastic bag slipped from my hand. Emma? Her face changed instantly. Not surprise, not relief, fear. She pulled the blanket tighter around the baby. I took one step toward her. Emma? Her mouth trembled. Then she began crying. Not softly. Her entire body shook. Dad? I dropped to my knees on the wet pavement. What happened? She covered her face. Please, don't look at me. Those 5 words nearly broke me. I pulled her against my chest. She felt impossibly light. I could feel the bones in her shoulders beneath the jacket. Emma? Look at me. She wouldn't. Sweetheart, look at me. Finally, she raised her face. Her cheeks were hollow. Her lips were pale. There were dark circles under her eyes. What happened to you? She shook her head. I'm sorry. For what? I'm sorry, Dad. Emma, stop. Stop apologizing. Then the bundle in her arms moved. A tiny sound came from beneath the blanket. I stared. Emma slowly pulled one side of the blanket back. A newborn baby was sleeping against her chest. Dark hair, tiny nose, one small hand curled under her chin. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. Emma. Her eyes filled again. Her name is Sophie. I could barely speak. How old is she? 3 weeks. I looked at my daughter, then at the baby, then back at my daughter. Where have you been? Emma's face collapsed. They left me here. Who? She shook her head. They took everything. I wanted answers. I wanted names. I wanted to know who had done this. But the baby made another weak sound. That was when I noticed Emma was shivering violently. I stopped asking questions. I took off my coat and wrapped it around her. Then I helped her stand. She nearly fell. I caught her under the arms. When did you last eat? I had crackers this morning. A meal. She looked away. Yesterday. What about the baby? I used the last formula 2 hours ago. I picked up Emma's bag. There was almost nothing inside. A bottle, 2 diapers, a half-empty pack of wipes, a phone charger, 1 baby blanket. No wallet, no car keys, no proper coat. I carried Sophie to my truck while Emma followed beside me. I turned the heater all the way up. Emma sat in the passenger seat, clutching the baby. I bought 2 cans of formula, bottled water, diapers, and food from the store. Then, I drove them to an urgent care center. A nurse named Helen took one look at Emma and called for a doctor immediately. Emma was dehydrated, underweight, exhausted. Sophie was hungry but otherwise stable. I sat beside the examination table while Emma ate warm soup with shaking hands. For almost 20 minutes, neither of us spoke. I didn't want to frighten her. But inside me, questions were piling on top of each other. Finally, I asked the simplest one. Why didn't you call me? The spoon stopped halfway to her mouth. She stared at me. I did. I felt something cold move through my chest. What? I called. When? All the time. I never got a call. Emma's eyes narrowed. Dad, I swear to you, I called the house. I called your number. My number? Diane said you didn't want to speak to me. I stared at her. What did you just say? Emma put the spoon down. She said you were angry. About the baby? Emma nodded. How would Diane even know? Emma looked confused. I told her. When? 5 months ago. I leaned back in the chair. 5 months. At that time, I had been in Texas for a 2-week freight project. Emma had supposedly already moved to Cleveland. At least that was what Diane told me. What happened? Emma lowered her eyes. I found out I was pregnant. Her voice became smaller. I was scared. The father was another student named Kevin. When Emma told him, he panicked. Within 3 days, he stopped answering her messages. Emma had no idea what to do. So she called home. I was away. Diane answered. Emma told her everything. What did Diane say? Emma hesitated. She said your heart couldn't handle another shock. 2 years earlier, I had experienced chest pain at work. It turned out to be stress and high blood pressure. I spent 1 night in the hospital. I had never had a heart attack. Diane knew that, but apparently that was not what she told Emma. She said you'd had another episode. I shook my head. No. Emma stared at me. She told me you were taking medication. No. She said if I told you I was pregnant, you could have a heart attack. Emma, none of that happened. The color left her face. I reached for her hand. Keep going. She swallowed. Diane said there was a place near Toledo, a home for young mothers. What place? She said her sister helped run it. Diane doesn't have a sister in Toledo. Emma stared at me. I could see the moment another part of her world collapsed. She said, her voice broke, she said her sister's name was Carol. Diane has one sister. Her name is Rebecca. She lives in Arizona. Emma put both hands over her mouth. I felt anger rising in me, but I forced it down. I needed the entire story, not rage. Not yet. What happened next? Diane told Emma to come home while I was still away. She promised to help. When Emma arrived, Diane said it would be better if Emma went to the supposed young mother's residence immediately. She told Emma I was ashamed. She told her I had said I did not want neighbors to know my daughter had become pregnant. Emma cried when she told me that part. I thought you hated me. I squeezed her hand. Never. She said you wanted me gone before you came home. Emma, she said you told her I wasn't your responsibility anymore. I stood up and turned away because I could feel tears burning behind my eyes. For months, my daughter had believed I had rejected her. And during those same months, I had believed she was too busy with college to call. Why? Because Diane had an explanation for everything. Emma's new program was demanding. Emma was making friends. Emma needed space. Emma was becoming independent. When I asked why she never answered my messages, Diane would smile. She's 19, David. Stop hovering. I believed her. That was the part that hurt most. I believed her because trusting Diane was easier than asking uncomfortable questions. Emma continued. Diane took her phone. She said Kevin might track me. And you gave it to her? I was scared. Diane bought her a cheap prepaid phone. Then she put Emma on a bus to Toledo with an address written on a piece of paper. When Emma arrived, there was no shelter. It was an old rooming house. The man who owned it told her Diane had already paid 2 months' rent. Emma called Diane immediately. Diane apologized. She said the young mother's residence was full, and this was temporary. She promised everything would be fixed. Days became weeks. Every time Emma asked to come home, Diane warned her not to. She kept saying you were still angry. I closed my eyes. How did you survive? Diane sent some money at first. How much? Maybe $100 every week or two. That isn't enough. I know. Where was your college money? Emma looked at me. She said you stopped it. I felt my heartbeat change. What? She said you canceled the tuition account. I said nothing. Emma noticed. What? I never canceled anything. She looked frightened again. I asked another question. Where is your car? Diane said you sold it. I stood perfectly still. I had bought that car for Emma. As far as I knew, it was parked at her apartment in Cleveland. At least that's what Diane had told me. I suddenly remembered asking about the insurance renewal 3 months earlier. Diane said she had taken care of it. My stomach tightened. What happened after Sophie was born? Emma's face went blank. That scared me more than her tears. Ryan came. Ryan was Diane's 23-year-old son. He had lived with us for almost a year after Diane and I married. Ryan always had a new plan. Crypto, online businesses, used cars, sports betting. He never stayed with one thing long enough for it to become a job. What did Ryan do? He said the landlord wanted everyone out. Was that true? I don't know. He packed your things? Emma nodded. He put them in his truck. And then? He said he was taking me somewhere better. My hands curled into fists. Emma looked toward Sophie. We drove for maybe 20 minutes. She took a breath. Then he stopped at the grocery store. The place where I found you? Yes. What did he say? Emma didn't answer immediately. I waited. Finally, she whispered. He said, my mom's done cleaning up your mess. I felt something inside me go completely still. He left you there? He gave me $20. With a 3-week-old baby? Emma nodded. When? 2 days ago. I stared at her. 2 days. My daughter had been sitting in and around that shopping plaza for 2 days with a newborn. She slept in the waiting area of a bus station one night. The second night, an employee made her leave. She spent part of the night inside a 24-hour laundromat. That afternoon, her formula ran out, so she started asking strangers for help. And if my windshield wiper had not broken, if I had stopped at another store, if I had finished work 20 minutes later, I might never have seen her. That thought has never left me. That evening, I rented a small furnished apartment near the clinic. I bought Emma clothes, baby supplies, food, a crib. I bought a new phone and put my number into it myself. Then I sat on the edge of the bed while Sophie slept nearby. Emma was exhausted, but before she went to sleep, she asked me something. "Dad? Yeah? Are you going to tell Diane you found me?" I looked at my daughter. For the first time, I understood how afraid she was of going home. No. Her shoulders relaxed. Not yet. The next morning, I called my company and took emergency leave. Then I called Mark Collins. Mark and I had known each other since high school. He became an attorney. I became a logistics manager. We were the kind of friends who could go 6 months without speaking and still answer at 2 in the morning. When I told him only part of what had happened, he said one thing: "Come to my office, bring everything." By noon, Emma and I were sitting across from Mark. He listened without interrupting. He asked Emma for dates, phone numbers, addresses, names, every payment Diane sent, every conversation Emma remembered. Then he asked me about Emma's finances. She has an education trust. How much? About $60,000 left when she started school. Who controls it? I do. Anyone else? My signature is required. Mark looked at me. Does Diane have access to your household financial documents? Yes. Your passwords? Some. Mark leaned back. David, we need to look at that account. I called the bank. My first instinct was confusion. The balance was far lower than it should have been. I asked for recent statements. The representative emailed them. Mark printed them. We spread the pages across his desk. There were 6 withdrawals over 4 months. 9,000, 8,000, 7,000, 6,000, 5,000, 7,000, $42,000. Every request carried my signature, except I had never signed any of them. I looked at Mark. That isn't my signature. Are you sure? I've signed my name every day for 30 years. Mark pointed to one form. This was processed while you were in Texas. Another. This one during your Kentucky trip. I remembered those trips. Diane often handled mail while I was gone. Mark began requesting additional records. By the following afternoon, we knew where most of the money had gone. $35,000 had been transferred into a small company registered under Ryan's name. The business had invested heavily in cryptocurrency. Most of the money was gone. Another $7,000 had gone toward furniture, a vehicle repair, and several personal expenses. I felt sick. Emma's mother had helped build that account. Sarah saved bonuses, birthday money, tax refunds. She once sold jewelry she inherited from her grandmother because she wanted Emma to have more choices than we had. Diane and Ryan had not simply stolen money. They had stolen something Sarah had left behind for our daughter. But that wasn't the only discovery. Emma's car had been sold. Diane had forged my authorization on that paperwork too. Mark called the dealer. The vehicle had been sold 3 months earlier. The check was deposited into our joint household account. Then, within days, nearly the same amount was transferred out. To Ryan. I sat in Mark's office staring at the documents. Why didn't I see any of this? Mark didn't answer immediately. Then he said something I needed to hear. Because you weren't looking. It hurt, but he was right. I had given Diane control over more and more of our household finances. Not because I was incapable, because I hated conflict. If a bill was wrong, Diane handled it. If Emma and Diane disagreed, I told them both to calm down. If Ryan needed money, Diane would explain why saying no might create tension in the family. So I gave in. Again and again. I thought keeping everyone calm was the same thing as keeping everyone safe. It wasn't. That evening, I went back to the rental apartment. Emma was sitting on the floor beside Sophie. There were design sketches scattered across the coffee table. I hadn't seen Emma draw in months. "What's that?" She quickly covered the page. "Nothing." I sat beside her. "Let me see." She hesitated. Then she handed me the sketch. It was a drawing of Sophie sleeping. Simple. Beautiful. Underneath it, Emma had written one word. Home. I looked at her. "You're coming back with me." She didn't answer. "I mean it. Dad, the house is your home. What about Diane?" I looked toward the bedroom door. "I'm handling Diane." Emma's face tightened. "Don't do something crazy." Despite everything, I almost laughed. "You think your old man is going to break down the door?" "A little." "No." I reached for her hand. "I'm going to do this properly." That was when Mark called. He had found something else. The phone records. The household account showed multiple calls from Emma's prepaid number. Dozens. Several lasted only seconds. Others had been answered, but never by me. Diane had been deleting incoming call history from our home phone system and blocking the prepaid number on my cell phone. Mark also found emails sent from an account that looked almost identical to mine. Not my real address. One letter was different. The emails were sent to Emma. They contained short messages. "Don't contact me right now. I need time. You made your decision. Do not come home." Emma had saved screenshots. I read every one. By the third message, my hands were shaking. She had not merely lied to Emma. Diane had built an entire fake version of me. A father who was ashamed of his daughter. A father who wanted nothing to do with his grandchild. A father who had chosen his new wife over his own child. I hated that man, and he did not even exist. Friday evening, I drove home. Mark advised me not to confront Diane immediately. We needed time to secure accounts, document transactions, and make sure Emma and Sophie were safe. So, I walked through my own front door and pretended I knew nothing. Diane was on the couch. The living room looked different. New furniture, new lamps, a new rug. I had barely noticed before. Now all I could see was $7,000 of Emma's future arranged beautifully around the room. Diane smiled. "How was Toledo?" "Interesting. Everything okay at the terminal?" "A lot of paperwork problems." She laughed. "You hate paperwork problems." "Not anymore." She looked at me for half a second longer than usual. Then she turned back to the television. I sat across from her. For the first time in years, I really watched my wife. Every gesture, every expression, every lie. "Have you heard from Emma?" The question came out casually. Diane stiffened almost imperceptibly. "No." "Nothing?" "No." She sighed. "David, we talked about this. She wants space." "Right. You have to stop chasing her." I nodded. "Maybe you're right." Diane relaxed. Then she smiled. "Oh, Ryan's coming Sunday." "For dinner?" "He wants to talk to you about a business opportunity." "Another one?" "This one is different." "Of course." She missed the sarcasm. "He just needs some startup capital." "How much?" "Maybe 15,000. I stared at the new lamp beside her. "Where would that come from?" Diane hesitated. "Well?" Then she gave a little shrug. "Emma isn't using the rest of her college fund right now." I looked directly at her. She smiled as if she had suggested using grocery coupons. Something inside me hardened. Sunday sounds good. The next 2 days were the strangest of my life. During the mornings, I stayed with Emma and Sophie. I learned how to prepare bottles properly. I learned babies can somehow require 3 clean outfits before noon. I learned Sophie hated being put down after feeding. And I learned that Emma watched the front door every time someone walked past the apartment hallway. She was still afraid. At night, I returned home. Diane talked about curtains, Ryan's latest business idea, a vacation she wanted to take in spring. I listened. I asked questions. And every hour, I understood more clearly how little I had known about the person sleeping beside me. Saturday night, Diane reached across the bed. "You've been quiet. Work. You're always working." "I know." She touched my shoulder. "You need to stop worrying so much." I stared into the darkness. For years, I had believed Diane was the person protecting me from stress. Now I understood she had been using my dislike of conflict to build a wall around me. a wall that kept Emma out. Sunday afternoon, Ryan arrived at 4:45. He wore an expensive leather jacket. He brought no food, no wine, nothing. He walked into the house like he owned part of it. David. Ryan. He slapped my shoulder. Big opportunity tonight. I've heard. Diane had prepared roast chicken. We sat down at 5. For the first 10 minutes, no one mentioned money. Ryan talked about the market. Diane praised his business instincts. I ate quietly. Finally, Ryan leaned back. So here's the thing. I looked at him. He explained his new business. Regional logistics software. Licensing rights. Investment partners. Words piled on top of words. None of it made much sense. Then he reached the real point. We need 15 grand. They? My partners, and me. What partners? He named 2 people I had never heard of. I nodded. And you have how much? Ryan cleared his throat. Personally? Yes. It's not about how much I have. It's about leverage. I see. Diane jumped in. David, don't interrogate him. I'm asking questions. He's trying to include you. Ryan smiled. Exactly. I placed my fork down. So where does the 15,000 come from? Diane looked at Ryan, then at me. Emma's fund. There it was. I leaned back. Emma's fund. She isn't using it. How do you know? Diane frowned. Because she left school. Did she? The room changed. Very slightly. But I felt it. Diane put down her glass. What does that mean? I was just asking. You know she did. No. You told me she did. Ryan shifted in his chair. Diane's voice hardened. David, what is this? I looked at her. When was the last time you spoke to Emma? Diane blinked. A few weeks ago. Interesting. Why? What did she say? That she wasn't ready to come home. I nodded. Anything else? She said she needed time. Was she crying? Diane's eyes narrowed. I don't remember. Was Sophie crying? Silence. Ryan stopped moving. Diane's face went completely still. Who is Sophie? I looked at her. For perhaps 5 seconds, no one breathed. Then I reached beside my chair and picked up a large brown envelope. I placed it on the table. Diane stared at it. What is that? Paperwork. Ryan gave a nervous laugh. You said you had paperwork problems. I did. I opened the envelope. The first document I placed on the table was a photograph. Emma, sitting outside the grocery store, holding Sophie. Diane turned pale. Ryan whispered something under his breath. I watched both of them. I found my daughter Tuesday afternoon. Diane's lips parted. No sound came out. She was sitting outside a grocery store in the freezing rain asking strangers for baby formula. David, she hadn't eaten properly in 2 days. Let me explain. I'm not finished. Ryan pushed his chair back. Man, I didn't know. Sit down. He froze. I had never spoken to Ryan that way before. He sat. I looked at Diane. You told Emma I hated her. David, that's not. You told her I would have another heart attack if she told me she was pregnant. I was trying to protect. You told her I wanted her out of my house. Diane's face tightened. She was pregnant at 19. You were already under stress. You invented messages from me. She said nothing. You blocked her number. Nothing. You sent her to a fake shelter. I thought the place was legitimate. Ryan looked at his mother. That was the first moment I saw fear between them. Not guilt. Fear. I turned to Ryan. You knew it wasn't a shelter. His jaw tightened. I don't know what she told you. She told me what you said when you abandoned her. I didn't abandon anybody. You left a 19-year-old girl and a 3-week-old baby outside a grocery store with $20. Ryan stood. She had somewhere to go? Where? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Sit down. This time he did. I pulled out the bank statements. $42,000. Diane's hands began to shake. What? You know exactly what. I slid the records toward her. 6 withdrawals from Emma's educational trust. David, we discussed. No. I spoke quietly. We didn't. She swallowed. I thought you approved them. They carry my forged signature. Ryan stared at his mother. Mom? Stop talking. She looked at him sharply. That told me more than any confession could have. I placed another document down. $35,000 went to Ryan's company. Ryan leaned forward. That was an investment. Using stolen money. It wasn't stolen. Whose money was it? He had no answer. I placed the vehicle records beside the bank statements. And Emma's car. Diane closed her eyes. You sold it. David, you forged my authorization and sold my daughter's car. I was going to replace the money. When? We had a plan. Was the plan before or after Ryan lost most of the $35,000? Ryan's face turned red. That market crash wasn't my fault. I looked at him. You're sitting at my table explaining why losing my daughter's inheritance wasn't your fault. Diane suddenly reached toward me. David, please. I pulled my hand away. No. Tears appeared in her eyes. For years, those tears might have stopped me. Not anymore. I was trying to hold this family together. You tore it apart. Emma was going to ruin everything. There it was. The sentence she probably wished she could take back. I stared at her. Ruin what? Diane's expression changed. She realized what she had said. I waited. Finally, she whispered, Our future. Our future? Ryan needed help. And Emma didn't? She had opportunities. She's 19. So is everyone when they make mistakes? He felt my anger rise. What mistake did she make that justified leaving her in the street? Diane looked away. I realized then that I would never receive the apology I wanted. Not a real one. She was sorry she had been caught. Not sorry for what happened. Mark had already helped me secure my personal accounts. The bank had opened a fraud investigation. A formal separation agreement was being prepared. I did not threaten Diane with imaginary prison sentences. I did not give her 5 minutes to sign away her rights. Real life doesn't work that cleanly. Instead, I told her the truth. The bank is investigating the forged withdrawals. Diane stared at me. Mark has copies of everything. Mark Collins? Yes. Her face changed again. You went to a lawyer? I went to my friend. David, don't do this. You already did it. Ryan stood. I'm leaving. I nodded. Yes. He stopped. You're both leaving. Diane stared at me. This is my house too. For tonight, I'm asking you to stay somewhere else while we begin the legal process. You can't throw me out. I don't intend to fight with you. That surprised her. I continued, but Emma and Sophie are coming home tonight. Diane looked as if I had slapped her. You bringing her here? Yes. She'll turn you against me. I almost laughed. She didn't have to. Diane began crying. Real tears this time. But they did not change anything. Ryan grabbed his jacket. Diane followed him upstairs. For the next hour, they packed clothes. I sat in the living room. The same living room furnished partly with Emma's stolen money. At one point, Diane came downstairs carrying a suitcase. She stood in the doorway. After everything I've done for you, I looked at her. That sentence used to control me. Not anymore. What did you do for me, Diane? She didn't answer. I trusted you. Her eyes hardened. You'll regret this. Maybe. I stood. But Emma regretted trusting you first. Diane left. Ryan followed. At 7:30, their car pulled out of the driveway. I stood at the window until the taillights disappeared. Then I called Emma. It's done. She was silent. Can we come home? I closed my eyes. Yes. I drove to the apartment. Emma had packed her few belongings. Sophie was asleep in her car seat. When we pulled into the driveway, Emma didn't move. She stared at the house. Dad? Yeah? What if she comes back? She won't get near you. Emma nodded. Still, she didn't open the door. I got out, walked around the car, opened her side. Then I held out my hand. She looked at it. You don't have to be afraid of your own home. Her eyes filled with tears. She took my hand. We walked inside together. The house was quiet. Emma stood in the hallway. She looked toward the stairs, then toward the kitchen. For a second, I saw the 14-year-old girl who had lost her mother. The girl I promised to protect. I'm sorry, I said. Emma turned. For what? For not seeing what was happening. You didn't know. I should have. She shook her head. Dad. I believed her instead of checking. Emma stepped toward me. You believed I was safe. That sentence hit harder than any accusation. I nodded. I won't make that mistake again. Sophie began crying. Emma laughed through her tears. Well, you can start by making a bottle. That first night back, none of us slept much. Sophie woke every 2 hours. Emma had nightmares. Twice I found her checking the locks. The second time, I didn't say anything. I simply checked them with her. The months that followed were not as clean as stories sometimes make them sound. There were attorneys, bank investigators, police interviews, documents, calls. Question. Diane hired her own lawyer. She denied knowing the signatures were forged. Ryan claimed he believed the money had been given to him legally. The investigation continued. Eventually, the financial case was resolved through repayment agreements, asset recovery, and divorce proceedings. Ryan sold his truck. The remaining business assets were liquidated. Some of Emma's money was recovered. Not all of it. Diane and I divorced. I kept the house after a financial settlement that took months to negotiate. But the biggest recovery had nothing to do with money. Emma began sleeping through the night again. She gained weight. She started drawing. One afternoon I found her sitting at the kitchen table, surrounded by college brochures. What are those? She looked almost embarrassed. Programs. For? Graphic design. I tried not to smile too widely. You want to go back? Maybe. Maybe sounds good. There's a state university 20 minutes away. Even better. I'd need help with Sophie. I picked up my coffee. I happen to know a highly experienced babysitter. Emma raised an eyebrow. You? 30 years of management experience. You changed her diaper backward yesterday. That was one time. She laughed. And hearing that laugh again felt like getting a small piece of my old life back. Emma enrolled the following semester. Her classes were mostly in the mornings. I adjusted my work schedule. Every day at 7:30, Emma would come downstairs with her backpack while I stood in the kitchen holding Sophie. Some mornings were chaos. Bottles, diapers, coffee, homework, missing keys. But it was good chaos. Living chaos. Family chaos. The kind of chaos I had once tried so hard to avoid. One morning, Emma stopped at the front door. Dad? Yeah? You know you don't have to make my lunch every day. I know. You do it anyway. I know. She smiled. Mom used to do that. I looked down at Sophie. Yes. She'd be happy, you know. I looked at my daughter. I hope so. Emma walked out. I stood there holding my granddaughter. And for the first time in a long time, I believe Sarah might have forgiven me for taking so long to understand what protecting our daughter really meant. 6 months after that rainy afternoon, Emma and I were sitting on the back porch. Spring had finally arrived. The trees behind the house were green again, and the evening air carried that soft smell of fresh grass and rain. Through the screen door, I could hear Sophie making little noises from her crib. She was almost 7 months old now, healthy, curious, and somehow able to turn every object within reach into something she wanted to put in her mouth. Emma came outside carrying 2 cups of chamomile tea. She handed one to me and sat in the wooden chair beside mine. For a while, neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. There had been a time when silence in that house felt heavy. After Sarah died, I used to hate it. That was part of the reason Diane had seemed so comforting when she first came into my life. She filled every quiet space. She always had an opinion. Un plan, a solution. I had mistaken noise for life. Now I understood that silence could mean something completely different. Sometimes silence meant safety. Sometimes it meant 2 people no longer had to explain themselves to each other. Emma took a sip of tea. Dad? Yeah? Do you ever think about how strange it was that you found me? I looked at her. All the time. If your windshield hadn't broken, I know. If you had stopped at another store, I know. If you had arrived 10 minutes later. Emma. She stopped. I put my cup down. I don't like thinking about that part. She looked out toward the yard. Neither do I. For several seconds, all we heard was the wind moving through the trees. Then Emma smiled slightly. You really didn't recognize me at first. I recognized your voice. I looked terrible. You looked cold. She laughed quietly. I looked homeless. I turned toward her. You looked like my daughter. Her smile disappeared. Her eyes filled. She looked away quickly, pretending to study something at the edge of the yard. I knew that habit. She had inherited it from her mother. Sarah always looked away when she didn't want people to see her cry. After a moment, Emma said quietly, I used to think you didn't come Because you didn't want me. My chest tightened. I know. For months. Every time the phone rang downstairs at that rooming house, I thought maybe it would be you. I said nothing. I would hear footsteps in the hallway and think maybe you had found me. She pressed her lips together. But you never came. I looked down at my hands. There were things that no apology could repair. I didn't know where you were. I know that now, but you didn't know it then. She shook her head. No. Her voice became softer. I thought maybe if I had been a better daughter. Emma, she continued before I could stop her. Maybe if I hadn't gotten pregnant. Maybe if I hadn't disappointed you. Maybe if I had just gone to school and done everything right. Look at me. She did. You never needed to earn your way back to me. Her eyes filled again. You understand that? She nodded. I do now. I reached for her hand. But you didn't then. No. That is the part I will always be sorry for. Emma squeezed my hand. Dad, Diane did that. Not you. I gave Diane room to do it. You trusted your wife, and I stopped checking. Emma didn't argue. She knew I needed to say it. I thought being a good husband meant trusting her. I thought being a good father meant giving you independence. I thought if nobody was yelling, everything must be okay. I shook my head. I was wrong about all three. Emma looked at me for a long time. Then she smiled a little. You're also terrible at changing diapers. I stared at her. That has nothing to do with this conversation. It has everything to do with this conversation. It happened once, twice, 1.5 times. She laughed, and I laughed with her. That sound still did something to me. Every time Emma laughed now, I remembered the girl sitting outside that grocery store in freezing rain, and every time I felt grateful that version of her wasn't the final version of the story. Recovery wasn't dramatic. There wasn't one morning when Emma woke up and everything suddenly felt normal. It came in pieces. The first week she stopped checking the front door every 10 minutes. The first night she slept without waking from a nightmare. The first time she drove by herself again. The first day she left Sophie with me for 3 hours and went to class without calling home every 20 minutes. Little victories. Most people would never notice them. I noticed everyone. There were setbacks, too. One afternoon, Emma received a letter related to the financial investigation. She sat at the kitchen table staring at Diane's name on the paperwork until her hands started shaking. Another time, we passed a car that looked like Ryan's, and Emma immediately reached for Sophie's stroller as if someone might take her away. Healing didn't erase memory. It simply made memory less powerful. Eventually, Emma started seeing a counselor through the university. At first, she didn't want to go. She told me she was fine. I recognized that sentence. It was the same lie I had told myself for years after Sarah died. So I didn't pressure her. I just said, being strong and getting help aren't opposites. She went. Slowly, the fear began loosening its grip. She returned to graphic design. And she was good. Very good. One evening, she came home holding a folder against her chest. What is that? I asked. Nothing. That means it's something. She rolled her eyes and handed it to me. Inside was a poster she had designed for a student exhibition. A young woman was standing in the rain holding a child. Behind her was a small light in the distance. There was no face, no name, just a single sentence beneath the image. Sometimes home isn't a place. Sometimes it's the person who still comes looking for you. I stared at it longer than I intended. Emma watched me nervously. Too much? No. My voice cracked. It's perfect. A month later, that design won second place in the university exhibition. Emma didn't tell many people what inspired it. She didn't need to. Some stories belonged to the person who survived them. The legal side eventually became quieter too. Ryan sold his vehicle and some equipment to meet part of the repayment agreement. His business disappeared. Diane moved into a small apartment outside the city. Through our attorneys, she attempted several times to contact me. I never responded personally. One letter contained almost 3 pages explaining why she had done what she did. She blamed stress, money, Ryan, Emma's pregnancy, my work schedule, our marriage, almost everything except herself. I read it once. Then I put it back in the envelope. Years earlier, I would have spent nights analyzing every sentence. I would have wondered whether I had been too harsh, whether I should forgive her, whether keeping peace required me to hear her side again. I didn't feel that way anymore. Forgiveness and access are not the same thing. You can stop carrying anger without opening the door again. I didn't need Diane to apologize correctly. I didn't need Ryan to admit what he had done. I needed Emma to feel safe. That was enough. One Sunday morning, Sophie was crawling across the living room while Emma worked on a project at the kitchen table. I was sitting on the floor with a cup of coffee when Sophie grabbed the edge of the couch and pulled herself upright. Emma. What? Look. Emma turned. Sophie stood there wobbling on two tiny legs. For 1 second, she looked very proud of herself. Then she fell directly onto her diaper. Emma burst out laughing. I started laughing too. Sophie looked at both of us and began laughing simply because we were. That moment wasn't dramatic. No lawyers. No confrontations. No secrets. Just 3 people sitting on the floor laughing. And somehow, that was the moment I knew we had finally made it home. Later that evening, Emma and I returned to the porch. The sun was beginning to set. Dad? Yeah? Do you think Mom would have liked Sophie? I smiled. She would have spoiled her terribly. Emma laughed. She would have. She would have bought too many clothes and told you they were on sale. Exactly. Emma became quiet. I wish she could see us. I looked toward the orange light beyond the trees. Maybe she can. Emma leaned her head against my shoulder. For a while, we stayed like that. Then Sophie began crying inside. Emma sighed. There she goes. I've got her. You sure? I stood. Highly experienced babysitter. You still put her diaper on backward. One time. Tfu. History has been exaggerated. Emma laughed again. I walked toward the door. Then I stopped. I looked back at my daughter. 6 months earlier, I had found her sitting on wet pavement, hungry, frightened, and convinced her father didn't love her anymore. Now she was sitting in the evening light, healthy again, working toward her degree, raising her daughter, and slowly rebuilding the future someone had tried to steal from her. I couldn't undo what happened. I couldn't return those lost months. I couldn't erase every night she spent believing I had abandoned her, but I could make sure she never had to wonder again. For most of my life, I believed peace meant avoiding conflict, keeping everyone happy, not asking difficult questions, saying yes because saying no might make someone angry. I know better now. Peace isn't silence. Peace isn't pretending. And peace isn't allowing someone to hurt the people you love simply because confronting them feels uncomfortable. Sometimes, love means asking the question nobody wants you to ask. Sometimes it means checking the bank account, making the phone call, looking behind the explanation that sounds just a little too convenient. Sometimes protecting your family means standing between them and someone you once trusted. And sometimes the most important promise you ever keep is the one you almost failed to keep. Sarah once asked me to take care of our girl. For a while, I thought I had failed her. Maybe part of me always will. But when I look at Emma now, when I hear Sophie laughing from the next room, when I see my daughter walk through our front door without fear, I know something else too. A mistake doesn't have to become the ending. You can wake up. You can change. You can rebuild what was damaged. And sometimes, when someone you love believes nobody is coming for them, you get one more chance to prove that they were wrong. If this story made you think about someone in your own family, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done if you were in David's place? Would you have confronted Diane immediately, or would you have waited and gathered the truth first? Share your thoughts below, because sometimes the most meaningful part of a story is hearing how other people would have handled the same moment. And if you enjoy emotional family stories about love, betrayal, second chances, and the truths people try to keep hidden, you're always welcome here at Hidden Stories. Every family has things they don't say. Every life has moments other people never see. And sometimes, behind an ordinary door, there is a story waiting to be told. If you'd like to hear more stories like this one, please like the video, share it with someone who might enjoy it, and subscribe to Hidden Stories. Thank you for spending this time with us. And thank you for listening all the way to the end. Take care of the people you love, Don't ignore the quiet signs that something may be wrong, and never underestimate how much it can mean when someone knows you will come when they call. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.